Okay, hi, and welcome to HDFS 332, Death, Dying, and Grief. Despite the title and the topic, I totally love teaching this class. I've taught it dozens of times in my lots of years here at CSU. I'm not currently working in this field, but I spent about 10 years in my 20s working in the grief and loss field. It actually started because my mom was a hospice bereavement counselor and wrote her dissertation on death in the family. I became a hospice volunteer. Then my first job out of college was to work as a hospice secretary here at Pathways Hospice in Fort Collins. I would go on to facilitate grief groups for Pathways Hospice. I was a research assistant for two professors working in the grief and loss field in graduate school. And then between my master's and my PhD, I worked at the CSU Veterinary Teaching Hospital as a grief counselor. And so that's where I'll pull on a lot of my knowledge and expertise, that and the Pathways Hospice grief groups. I'm really glad to talk with you, help you with, if you're struggling in this class. I love to look over any assignment drafts you've done prior to you submitting them so I can really help you maximize your score. I'd be glad to discuss your career plans, other things about the class content, or to look over your exam scores. I generally hold my office hours online on Zoom, and there's a sign up on the course homepage for my office hours each week, although in the summer I just hold those by appointment. All right, let me tell you quickly about me. So I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, go Gators, but I betrayed my family and went to Florida State, where I met my husband. I followed him out to Colorado, and after working as a secretary for Pathways Hospice here in town, that was my first real job. Then I went and did a master's in marriage and family therapy in the Human Development and Family Studies department here at CSU. Then I worked for 3 years at the CSU Veterinary Teaching Hospital as a grief counselor and educator. Then I left. We moved to Indiana so that I could attend Purdue. I was pregnant with my son when I started and pregnant with my daughter when I finished. Then we moved back here and I began teaching full-time at CSU in 2007, and I've been doing that ever since. A little bit about my family of origin. You can see that picture there. We are all actually Dr. Harveys because my parents both have PhDs and my brother recently got a doctorate of ministry. And then you can see a picture of my current family. I have a son who's graduated from college and a daughter in beginning college. And so I definitely have a ton of empathy for what it's like to be a college student right now. We have an excellent teaching assistant team, both graduate and undergraduate support, and you'll have a chance to meet them on campus. This is an asynchronous online class. I've set it up so that all assignments are open now and you can work ahead. The exceptions are the 2 major exams and the several extra credit surveys. If you're in the 16-week online version, then you're completing 1 module a week. And if you're in the 8-week online version, then you're doing 2 modules a week. It's pretty fast-paced. So in general, I'm hoping to teach you what to say, what to do in a variety of situations related to death, dying, and grief. We've divided the class into 5 different areas. We'll spend just a couple of modules related to death, our current encounters with death, and cultural differences and similarities when it comes to attitudes around death and mourning and bereavement practices. And then we're going to move into talking about dying for adults, specifically talking about the tasks of dying, how to cope. We'll talk about how to care for dying individuals, hospice and palliative care, medical aid in dying, euthanasia, and also funeral practices and rituals. Then we move into what I think of as the heart of the class, grief. We'll be talking about kind of key terms and models related to grief, complicated grief, and how to help people who are grieving. Then we'll move into development. We'll focus specifically on kids dying and grieving, adolescents dying and grieving, and a little bit more about adults experiencing grief. And then we'll finish with special topics on sudden death, which includes like homicide, drug overdose, and suicide, and also pet loss or companion animal loss. And then our advanced directives and blog assignments tie in here. The advanced directives assignment is specifically around the dying process, and the blog assignment is anything that you pick in the class. So it could be related to any of these areas. If you're at all on the fence about taking this class, I encourage you to look under the Start Here link on the course homepage and then scroll down until you find the links to these 2 pages that contain advice from former students. And so this class is heavy. That's the word that students most often use to describe it. It does cover death, dying, and grief every single week. There's no class where it's not a tough topic. I don't think I teach it in a kind of devastating way, and I'm certainly not trying to traumatize you or shock you, but I am teaching you how to help people and yourself in a variety of really specific situations. So if you have any tendency to kind of move away or shut down with difficult material, that could translate into you disengaging from this class and then not doing well academically. So take a look at that advice and reach out to me if you have questions. All right, we have 2 required textbooks in this class, and they're not your typical textbook. They're both just kind of books for the lay public that are pretty inexpensive that you can get on Amazon. You can also consider getting them as audiobooks, or you can get them from your library. So the first one is for the first half of the class. It's more focused on dying. It's called A Beginner's Guide to the End. It's very readable, large print, lots of graphics. A lot of students keep it and pass it along to other loved ones. And then the second one is option B, and it's more focused on grief, responding to a variety of losses, death, and non-death, and we'll be using that for the second half of the class. In addition to our required textbooks, we also have just selected chapters that are also required and posted on Canvas. Okay, so I've been teaching this class online and face-to-face for many years, and so the lectures that you get in the online class are the exact same ones that I give in the face-to-face class, which means that they're long. However, I really try to keep them current, up to date, engaging. They are the heart of this class. This is how I'm teaching you what I know about how to help yourself and others during stressful times. So I encourage you to just carve out time to listen to them, even if you're doing it on faster speed, because they're really important. You can also, in addition to keeping up with them as you progress through the class, they're great to review for exam preparation. That's going to be the best thing to prepare you for the exam. There are about 16 lectures total, usually 1 per module. Sometimes there's occasionally a module with 2, and they range from anywhere around 20 minutes to over an hour. So we will generally use the Canvas announcement function that gets sent to your email when we're communicating with you as a class, or directly we will just send an email to you through your CSU email or through your Canvas inbox. When you're emailing us, do us a favor and check Canvas announcements or Canvas first to see if you can find the answer to your question. If not, when you email us, go ahead and put the course name or course subject number and give your full name so that we know, because the TAs and I are often responsible for multiple classes, so that way we'll know right away which class you're talking about. And give us 24 to 48 hours, not including weekends. Now, we're never going to ignore an email from you, so if you don't hear from us, just send an email again or reach out to me if you reached out to the TA team. If you have questions about an assignment that you submitted, we ask that you email us rather than leaving a comment in the Dropbox. We get so many comments in the Dropbox, it's hard for us to figure out which ones are important and which ones, aren't. Okay. I do want to give you a heads up that I regularly have to file reports with the Student Resolution Center or Student Conduct regarding plagiarism, even if it's unintentional. And so here's the typical reasons. Most recently, it's because people were using an AI platform to write their paper. However, when I meet with them to talk about it, they typically say they just used it to brainstorm or get ideas. So what I would tell you is I think you better avoid it. I wish I could tell you you could use AI to guide it, but I think it's hard for people to use AI without taking too much from it, and then they're not doing their own thinking and their own writing. Similarly, if you are using the sample paper too closely, if you're even if you're putting it in your own words, if you're just kind of taking the ideas from the sample paper or another student's paper, if you take anything word for word from any source, not only do you have to cite it to give credit, but you also have to use quotation marks to let us know that you're taking more than 3 words from a sentence, for example. There's a lot of great resources, as you know, on campus, and I've got these linked up under the homepage on a link called Resources. We'll be going over some of the library guides that are relevant to this class, but you can also walk into the library and get support for research project, but also just technical support for your laptop or if you're struggling with iClicker. We have, of course, the Student Disability Center, which is for anyone who has a diagnosis, mental health diagnosis, learning disorder, physical challenge, concussion, right? Anything like that, either short or long term, that you need to go through the Student Disability Center, and they often have a kind of a long appointment wait time, so you don't want to wait for that. Student case management, which is great for letting you know, just kind of helping you figure out where to get going for resources, and they also provide some absence notifications or verifications in a kind of some limited circumstances. Religious accommodations are available. The Survivor Advocacy and Feminist Education Center, or the SAFE Center, formerly the Women and Gender Advocacy Center, is a great resource. And we have a lot of resources under Rams Against Hunger, food pantries, and also meal swipe programs. Okay, this is how points are distributed in this class, and I'll go over each of these assignments in more detail, but just a couple of takeaways from looking at it. One is there's a lot of things to do in this class, and that's can be good news or bad news. The bad news is there's a lot of things to do. The good news is no one thing is going to make or break you in terms of points. And then the second takeaway is that there's a lot of extra credit in this class. So I do hold firm to my rules, but I have a lot of ways that you can have grace in this class and have extra credit if you struggled or missed something.
Okay, so here's my grading scale. There isn't a set grading scale at CSU, so everybody gets to make up their own. One thing that I do want to tell you is that I do give A pluses. So that's one reason to do the extra credit, even if you've already got an A, is because I will, when I submit grades, kind of go through an extra step to turn your A into an A plus. Canvas won't show an A plus, but I will submit that into the grading system. And it doesn't change your GPA, but it's pretty cool to see A pluses on your transcript.
So the policy here just states that once the grades are posted and visible to you, you have a week to let us know that something's not right, that you didn't get the points, or we made an error. We just don't want to be getting a bunch of emails at the end of the semester, about people kind of arguing for points, especially once grades are posted and people are trying to kind of get to a higher score. We don't want people going back and trying to come up with points from early assignments. So just make sure you stay on top of it, check your rubrics and your grades, and make sure everything's okay as we go. I know it's really hard to keep track of all instructors' different policies around late assignments. Mine are that you can submit anything late in this class with the exception of the major exams and extra credit surveys with a 5% per day deduction, and there's no end date on that, although when you're doing the math after 20 days at 5% per day, there's no points left to deduct, so there's no point in submitting anything that's more than 20 days late. The hard deadline is the Sunday of the last week of class, or the Sunday before finals week if it's a 16-week semester, and that's the last day to submit all assignments with or without documentation. In order to remove your late penalties, I will need documentation from one of these CSU sources: the Student Case Management Center, the Student Disability Center, Religious Accommodations, or the SAFE Center, formerly known as the Women and Gender Advocacy Center. I do have a late policies link on the course homepage that details all this, and I'll often refer students back there rather than have to try to explain all of this in an email. Student case management has gotten narrower in what they will provide documentation for absence verification. Now it is only hospitalizations, whether that's medical or mental health, more than 3 days, and the documentation is going to kind of have to come directly from the hospital to student case management. Jury duty or court appointments, Title IX protections related to pregnancy or investigations around, for example, intimate partner violence or sexual assault, bereavement of human loved ones. Pets aren't covered under this, unfortunately, but all students are eligible for 5 days annually of bereavement leave for things like traveling for services or attending services or because of, or going to the hospital. and these don't have to be taken consecutively. So I would encourage you to think about what day do you actually need it because you're missing class or you're missing an exam, and just apply for that day rather than the whole chunk of time, for example, that you're out. And then the last one is high impact situations such as natural disasters in your home community, for example, if you're an online student, or campus incidents. So we have about 1 class participation per module, so 15 to 16 class participations in this class. It'll be a regular activity. The assignments and rubrics vary depending upon kind of the content. We will drop 2 of those, so we'll count 14 out of 16. Your lowest 2 will get dropped. Some of these are just individual submissions, and some of these are discussions where you have the opportunity to earn a point for an extra credit reply. We also have 7 reading discussions, about 1 every other module, which translates to 1 every other week in the 16-week semester and 1 a week during the 8-week summer course. And so you will sign up for under people for your discussion group, which is also your blog group. Unless you're in the summer session, and then you don't need to sign up, we're just putting you into groups. So your reading discussions will be taking place in a smaller group of students, not with the entire class. I will just say a note about blog group. I'll repeat it again. It gets confusing, but it isn't actually a group assignment. It just, during the regular academic year, the 16-week semester, it just indicates whether or not you're doing the blog early or the blog late. Okay, so we have 7 reading discussions. We drop your lowest 1, and each of these you can earn 1 extra credit point for leaving a reply for a classmate. So there's no required replies. We do have a required APA and plagiarism quiz in this class. You're allowed to take it 3 times, and the system will record your highest score. It's open book, and you can use the materials posted on Canvas. It's based on the HDFS APA PowerPoint. There's 20 questions on each attempt. However, there's about 45 questions in the bank. So if you'd like to see all the questions and make sure that you're on track for APA and plagiarism policies, then you'll want to take it a couple of times. Okay, so we have 2 exams online in this class. They are multiple choice, mostly, with a handful of short answer. The final is not cumulative. The exam, again, is online. You're going to take it within a 3-day window. Once you get started, you'll have 75 minutes and 1 attempt. It is a proctored closed book exam, but you are allowed 1 handwritten notes page. And the reason why I require it handwritten is then it's harder to put online or email to somebody. Everybody has to make their own notes page. The proctoring does require a webcam. If that's iffy on your equipment, then know that you can check out a laptop on campus in a few different areas, and that information is linked up under the Student Resources button on the course homepage. If you have extended time on your exams from the Student Disability Center, then we'll take that letter that we receive, our GTA will enter that extended time before the first exam and give you an email to confirm. There are study guides available for both exams, and those are linked up under the exam information button on the course homepage. There are study guides available for the exams in this class. They're located under the exams link on the homepage. I occasionally change these as we move through the semester, and I add or delete or revise material. These are a copy and paste of the PowerPoint slides, so they are very long, but they do include some information on what is more likely to be emphasized on the exam and what are the things that you don't need to know for the exam. I would encourage you to consider using these Word documents as a tool to take notes on the lectures. The blog assignment is one of our 2 major assignments in this class. Both of our major assignments are individual assignments. So for the blog assignment, you do sign up if you're in the 16-week semester for a blog group, which makes it confusing because it sounds like it's a group assignment. But you're signing up for both your discussion group and when you want to complete the blog, either in blog group 1, which means your due dates are in the first half of the semester, or in blog group 2, which means your due dates are in the second half of the semester. So again, it's an individual assignment, and group just means when are your assignments due. In the 8-week summer class, since it's shorter and a smaller class, everyone is just in blog group 2. We don't even do the blog group 1 assignments or deadlines, so you can ignore those. And we put you into the blog groups for the summer class. You don't have to sign up. Okay, so once you're getting going, your goal is to produce a 600 to 800 word blog that gets posted under Canvas discussions, not a separate blog site, but all students can read what you wrote. In preparation for that, you're going to complete some required assignments. For the first one, the blog check-in, you're going to be identifying your journal article. You're going to be identifying who you want to interview. Most of the time people interview a family member, roommate, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend. And you're going to be deciding on your topic, which needs to be something related to course material. And we've got some resources in the blog blog assignment Dropbox for kind of figuring out your topic. So you'll be submitting a check-in so that we can kind of just make sure you're on the right track. And then you're going to go ahead and write your blog. It's not a rough draft. You're trying to make it as complete as possible. My goal is to help you maximize your points on the final. So we'll give you feedback on what you need to change to get full points. And then you could submit that for the final, and you'll also post it on the discussion board so that everybody else can read it. Then you're going to have the opportunity to give and receive comments on your blog post. For each blog group, you'll have the chance you'll do one required comment, and then you'll also have the opportunity to do one extra credit comment. So in the 16-week class, you do this twice. You leave a comment on both blog groups, even if you were only presenting in one. But in the summer class, you just do it once. You have the opportunity for one extra credit comment, and you have one required comment. Our second major assignment in this class is the Advanced Directives assignment, and I would say this is one of the things that students are most likely to write about on their final reflection paper or final reflection CP, kind of what they're taking from this class that they appreciate. So in this assignment, you will have the opportunity to explore advanced directives, which are medical and legal documents that people can create prior to death. So this isn't a will, that's after death, but these are the documents that you would create in case you are incapacitated, like in a coma, and you can't make decisions for yourselves. Students create these for themselves, and then many students often help their parents or other family members create these as well. So you'll have a chance to learn about them, explore them, create 2 of your own, the 5 wishes document and the medical durable power of attorney, also called the MDPOA. You'll write a reflection paper about that, and you have the opportunity to get some extra credit if you get your MDPOA notarized. There is a separate PowerPoint on the Advanced Directives assignment and some Dropbox resources. This assignment is submitted all at once, so whereas the blog assignment is submitted in several parts, this one is just kind of one and done. So my goal is to create a course in which all students can find themselves and also find the populations that they're going to be serving. As you might imagine, this type of content related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice is always changing. And I'm doing my best to stay on top of it, but sometimes I'm inaccurate, I'm outdated, and I know you'll let me know. I appreciate that. So feel free to reach out to me if something doesn't sit well with you. Send me an email, come to office hours. And if you're not comfortable coming to me, then there are a couple of other avenues through my department head or the bias reporting forum, and those links are available in the course syllabus. Okay, so these are the CSU principles of community. I'm going to do my best to hold myself to these, and you can let me know if you think I'm failing, and I'll also expect this of students as well. Okay, great job making it to the end of the welcome PowerPoint. We'll be clarifying things as we move through the course, but feel free to email me with any questions.